We have been looking at, again, the parashat, Zinu. And again, this is dealing with the idea of listen. One of the things that we have looked at this week, again, give us again the path of life and where we are at this particular time. What we've been looking at again is we started out with the idea of the thought of creation that gave rise to the experience of Tzimtzum. That is the contraction. The contraction, we developed the vessel called the Kli, which is the vessel of reception. When we talk about our development, this is what is called, again, the Aleph. From there, we looked at the growing of, again, the Kli, and that is the ego. We saw it move from the base ideas of food, sex, and shelter, to wealth, to the accumulation of the same, to power, which is the protection, and also the taking of that. Then we went to knowledge, which basically was the completion of the Adamic civilization from the standpoint of egoism. We said that that development is what is called, again, the bet. Now we're over here with Erev, and that is the final correction, or what is going to be termed as Gemar Tikkun, which this development is an ascension of what is termed the Shema, or the ladder. From the perspective of Kabbalah, it's going to be said that there are going to be 125 steps up this ladder. Which will give us what is called, again, the goal of creation, or the final correction. And when we speak of this final correction, what we're really talking about is a new civilization. And this civilization, unlike the one that we are experiencing now, which we experience degeneration, we will move into a state of regeneration, not only in the physical body, but also, again, when you start to consider what Olam Haba is, again, a state that we are superimposing upon, that is regenerative. And so it is a continuous state of improvement. What I want to do with it tonight, because we're getting ready to move into our observance of Sukkot, is to put all of this again in harmony with the high holy days that we experience during, again, the fall festivals. So let's go to the book of Vayikra, and we'll be reading from chapter 23. Sometimes there is doubt that enters into the mind as what the purpose, the corporate purpose of the Jewish people really is. If you follow, again, the development that we went through We began with the development in Gan Eden. In Gan Eden, what has happened at that point is we have Adam Rishon. Adam Rishon is an evolution from what had been experienced, I guess what you would call the corporeal aspect of the human conscious experience. Up to Adam Rishon, what we have is we have a civilization in which you will see that the species, man at that particular time, is moving instinctively. It wasn't until we got into, again, the development of this individual situation where we are egotistical that we move into what is called the Adamic civilization. The Adamic civilization, again, is destined to evolve. And you have to understand that when we talk about Yisrael as being the Rosh, or the head, it's just like, again, a woman that is going to have a baby. What occurs, again, is the head comes out first. So the first part of the development of this new civilization is talked about, again, as being everlasting, being immortal, that type of thing, or that nature right there, that is actually going to be birthed by the Jewish people. But you can see it if you just simply follow, again, what occurs with our holy days. We start out with, again, in the fall festivals with Rosh Hashanah, which we call the head of the year, but Rosh Hashanah also represents, again, the time where the Adamic civilization began. So we're not going to say that, again, when Rosh Hashanah occurred, that that's when Adam was born or something of that nature right there. We already have civilization at that particular time, but civilization is going to continue in its development. And so in the development, we move again from being instinctive into being, again, egotistical. And so it, again, represents, Rosh Hashanah, when you talk about it, it represents, again, the birth of egoism. It represents that. But you'll notice the next thing, and that is that after this birth of egoism, or the birth of the civilization itself, it moves to Yom Kippur. And when you start to talk about Yom Kippur, what you're talking about when you say Kippur is you're talking about atonement. And so the destiny of the unfoldment of this civilization, we begin to see that it starts out egotistical, but it unfolds into what we call, again, a union or a oneness. This oneness, again, commences with the idea of becoming one with the Creator. And then it moves to the next thing, which is Sukkot. So we want to understand what Sukkot really is. And why, again, when you read from the book of Zechariah, that what you see, and that is that once the new civilization has begun, that what occurs is that everyone that's participating in it has to participate in, again, the Chag, or the feast, or the festival of Sukkot. Why? So let's look at that for just a moment, but let's begin from chapter 23, and let's just simply read verse 39 through 44. It says here, but on the 15th day of the 7th month, when you gather in the crop of the land, you shall celebrate the Chag's festival for a 7-day period. The first day is a rest day. The 8th day is a rest day. You shall take for yourselves on the first day the fruit of the citron tree, the branches of date palms, twigs of a plaited tree, and brook willows, and you shall rejoice before Echad your God for a 7-day period. You shall celebrate it as a festival for Echad, a 7-day period in the year, an eternal decree for your generations. In the 7th month you shall celebrate it. You shall dwell in booths, a 7-day period, every male in Israel shall dwell in booths, so that your generations will know that I caused the children of Israel to dwell in booths when I took them from the land of Egypt. And I, Echad, your God, and Moshe declared the appointed festivals of Echad to the children of Israel. So again, what we have here is we have this concept, again, that at the end of Yom Kippur, then we go right into Sukkot. But when you talk about Sukkot, Sukkot is talking about dwelling in a temporary condition. A temporary condition. Again, the idea comes from the concept that once we come into a conscious union with the Creator, that union must be actualized. And so we begin the actualization of this union in a temporary condition with the idea of transforming what is temporary into that which is going to be a visible manifestation of the Creator. So what we're actually being told in the celebration of these festivals is the mechanics that we are destined to employ in order to unfold the new civilization. You have to realize that that's what we're doing. You have to realize that when you start to talk about the dwelling in booths and things of that nature right there, you're dealing with a system other than the system that we're experiencing at this particular point. At this point, the system that we are dealing with in this egoism, this capitalism, and other different concepts that are on the planet, the one thing that we don't see in it is we don't see what happened in the wilderness. And that is that they came into a situation where they were going to deal with transforming themselves. And so in this transformation, the Creator was supplying everything for them. They're in the wilderness. They're in booths. They're not going to the marketplace and trading in order to sustain themselves. Their sustaining is coming directly from the Creator. It's not the same system that we're in at this particular time. But the one thing that you can understand about this, and that is that whenever we begin to understand things from the standpoint of what has been predetermined, it's only because the Creator will never begin a process without revealing it to us first. You got to realize something about what's going on right now. Why we see all this anti-Semitism, of course, is because we're not doing what we're supposed to do. But when we start to do what we are supposed to do, what we will discover is that we are here again to cause the Adamic civilization to evolve. And this is our purpose. It's the evolution of the civilization itself, or you can say the evolution of Adam Rishon. And this evolution begins again when we are out here in the Sukkah, in the temporary condition. And in this temporary condition, we are surrounding the Mishkan, and we know it's going to be Mishkan David. And the reason why we're surrounding that is because Mishkan David is giving us the instructions on how to move or how to transform from being egotistical into a collective, and a collective that is immortal in nature. So you'll read things like, again, in the book of Daniel, that, it's an everlasting nation. It's a collective that is not subject to this degenerative state that we're in, but it moves in a regenerative state. This is your assignment. It's nothing less than that. Again, we'll go, well, I'm not really concerned about this present world system. You're really not. Because what you're concerned about is the unfoldment of, again, the new civilization. You see this thing, again, happening in Gan Eden. And this is why we're called back to the land, because that's where the center of it is, the center of our civilization begins in Israel. And the thing that hath been is the thing that shall be. So when we began there, what happened was, we go down the road and then we get to, again, this idea of the deluge, the destruction. The destruction of the eagle was not going to be the way to do this. And so there were 8 people that were preserved. And after the preservation, there came a new Adam. And this new Adam is Abraham. And what he was out there doing was he was out there teaching people how to connect at the level of the supernal in order to create, again, a new nation. And this nation is the head. It's the head that is destined to unfold for the rest of, again, the sons of Adam, which means that we are participating, again, in a time now where we are creating a new civilization. A new civilization. And it's based upon, again, what we see if we just follow this. The Aleph, we've been through that. The Bet, we come to the end of that. And now we're here. And here, as we're dealing with the direct light, what happens to us is we build the first screen of understanding individual purpose, but then we build the second screen of understanding corporate purpose. And the corporate purpose of the Jewish people is to unfold the next level of civilization. This is why when we look again at what goes on anytime we are imitating the world, the way that we get dealt with is by, again, this pressure that comes on us. And this pressure is demanding that we move in harmony with the purpose in which we have been given. And so the pressure that's on us right now with all of this anti-Semitism, and we're in the right part of the year now, is to tell us that what we're supposed to be doing is being involved in the unfoldment of something that has not been seen yet. And that is this new civilization. We're told that this civilization is the product of judgment. Well, what is judgment? We talk about this being the determinate counsel, but it is a change of perspective. In other words, I can't look at things the way that I used to look at things. There's another way of looking at things, and this is the way that, again, Mishkan David is to reveal to people as to how this actually occurs. But we have to demonstrate this. We're not demonstrating just simply, again, the idea of, again, just becoming immortal individually or something of that nature right there. But we're talking about an immortal nation that is destined to be, again, an example to the rest of the nations on the planet, so that the civilization that had been predetermined by the Creator will begin to manifest itself. We're at that time. What we're seeing right now is the destruction of systems. The systems that are going on right now, we see it at the governmental level. We see it at, again, the financial level. We see it at all different types of levels right now. What we're seeing is a crash that is going on, but the crash that is going on is not the demise of the human conscious experience, but it is, again, the unfoldment of the next level or a higher level of existence. You need to think of yourself in a different way. You're the new Adam. You're the new Eve. And just as it was back then, in the Garden of Eden, there was a new Adam and a new Eve that was raising up a new civilization. This is why when, again, you see Cain, when he leaves the place where he's at, he's able to go someplace, And there are wives and things that are there. Why? Because you have another civilization that is there, but you have one now that is predominantly getting ready to be the next state of evolution. That's where we are now. We're there right now. We were told again to observe the festival so we would keep that in mind. And again, these festivals were not given to the other nations of the world, they were given to us. Why? So that we would have something that would guide us when the time came into actually what our purpose is. I want to read this last thing and then we'll come on with a little music tonight. But again, this is very important to understand. Very important to understand. Because you're going to see it. You're going to see it happen right before your eyes. And the thing that you have to realize again, and that is that how important it is to, again, move into the higher level of perspective that we're talking about, perspective of reality, because this perspective that we're moving into is, again, the perspective that belongs to this next civilization, this next evolution that we go through. Well, let's go to, again, Zechariah 14. The Jewish people, we have been in exile for a long time. And now, out here in the exile, what we're destined to do is begin to raise up this conscious level. In chapter 14, again, I want to drop down to verse number 16, where it talks about the unfoldment of this. And again, this is essential to understand. It's essential. And we may think that it takes a whole lot of people to do this, but it's not true. It's not true at all. It was the priesthood that was destined to do it in when we came out of Egypt, but we didn't. It just wasn't time. But now it's time. You have to understand that the concepts, the perspective that you bring is definitely going to be something that is not out here. Because what you're bringing forth is the perspective of a new civilization. We're going to see this egotistical civilization come crashing down right among you. You'll see it. It's happening right now. It says in verse 16, it says, "It shall be that all those who are left over from all the nations who had invaded Jerusalem will come up every year to worship the king Erev, master of legions, to celebrate the festival of Sukkot." Why Sukkot? Because Sukkot represents the mechanic that we need to employ in order to move into the next level of existence. So you're temporary out here, but we're out here to learn. Another thing that we discover is that you're out here while you're temporary, you become the light to the nations. In becoming this light, this is how we are sustained. So we're not going to be doing things to sustain ourselves. We're moving into something else. Again, it's very important to understand that. Very important to understand that. It's where we're going. All of your time will move into a situation of contemplation that will give rise to transformation. This is where we go. And it shall be that whichever of the families of the land does not go up to Jerusalem to bow before the king, Erev. So again, the idea of this oneness, because at this day he's being called one. Amen.
Amen.
So those that are not going to subject themselves to this, again, will bring problems not destruction the way that we understand it, because you have a different state now. You have a state of regeneration that is predominant. But you have a state where these people are going to struggle in this regenerative state. God, master legions, there will be no rain upon them. But if it is the family of Egypt that does not go up and does not come to, there will be no water for them. The same plague will come to pass with which God will strike the nations that do not go up to celebrate the festival of Sukkot. Very important. Why all nations there? Why at that point? Again, Rosh Hashanah, that's the beginning of the unfoldment of a new civilization. Then you move to the next thing, which is oneness with the Creator, atonement. And then you move to the next idea, and that is how to actualize this oneness into being. Now we're moving in that direction. They have already discovered that they only need 20% of the people on the planet to work in order to support everything on the planet. They discovered that. There's the idea that maybe nobody will be working because of automation. What do? We contemplate. For what reason? So that we can transform. This is where our next level comes from. This is the light that's shining on us. It's very important to understand this. Contemplate. Because we're evolving now, we're moving. You got to think about something. You know, a few years ago, we weren't thinking about nothing like this. And then all of a sudden, here comes light. The light of understanding who we are. And then it just continues to shine more and more. And now we're at a place now where we're beginning to understand what we are doing corporately. What we're doing corporately. It's very important to understand this. Sukkot tells us the same plague will come to pass with which God will strike the nations that do not go up to celebrate the festival of Sukkot. This will be the punishment of the Egyptians and the punishment of all the nations that will not go up to celebrate Sukkot. In other words, what happens, you know, it's using words that are branched right now, but what it's really saying is that the Resimo, that it will begin to pressurize the human conscious experience in such a way that we will do this. We will. We'll move to this next level. But if you look at this right here, Yisrael already has. It already has. And so, indeed, you are the new Adam, the new Eve. You got to start looking at things a whole lot differently if you're not looking at it from that standpoint. Because we're here, again, to set up this new paradigm, this new ensample of the next level of existence. And then not only that, but then to be able to teach this. But it is in our festivals. Our festivals actually tell us this, that this is what we do. Nehalel
Hallelujah.
Nehalel
Hallelujah.
Nehalel
Hallelujah.
Am Yisrael Chai.
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 All right, Rabbi Gershon.